All right, so thank you all for coming to join us here at the Gainesville UX Design Meetup Group. My name is Michelle Brownstein. I am one of the co-organizers along with Sue, who already introduced herself. Today, I'm going to be talking about reciprocity, which is one of my favorite things in the world because it applies to basically every aspect of our lives, because it is a social psychology concept. But in general, as it applies to the work that we do as designers and people in tech in general, I think it's a great thing for us all to keep in mind to ensure that we truly have our users in mind. So a little bit about me. I'm the Associate Director of User Experience at 352 here in Gainesville, Florida. Technically, we're in Newberry out in Tioga, but I'm a Gainesvillian at heart. And most of my time is spent doing research, but I am also a designer. And before React became the way of the world, I was also a coder. So just a little bit about me. All right. So let's see. How do I make this work? Because I've lost my mouse now. All right, so what is reciprocity? As I said, this is a social psychology term, and it's really just the need or the tendency for people to want to give something back when they've received something. So you can think of this as all, if everybody could please mute, that would be really helpful. So you can think about all the times that you've ever received something from someone, a gift. Maybe you've even gotten a gift from someone and you didn't have anything back. You have this kind of, you didn't have anything to give back to them. You know, you kind of have this desire to fill that, right? You got something from someone, it was so sweet, it was so thoughtful. And maybe a day or two later, you'll be like, hey, I got you a little something too. There's kind of this unspoken need sometimes to fill that back and forth exchange in the exchange of goods or services, or just a present, something like that. So you can think about this like, maybe a friend or neighbor maybe gives you a ride to the store, or maybe you go for Thanksgiving dinner. You typically have some kind of reciprocal exchange there. And in general, social psychologists often think of this as kind of the heart of our relationships with others. Like, if you think about a one-sided relationship where one person's giving all the time, it's probably not a very healthy relationship, right? Often in our social circles, we're giving to each other, whether it's information, gifts, goods, whatever it may be, a listening ear. There's always that reciprocity that's happening. Now, within reciprocity, you can also think about the value of the thing that's being exchanged. So we refer to this as reciprocal value. And it's literally how the perceived value of that exchange. So if I give $10 to someone, they may give me back a, handwritten card, but they spent 5 hours on it. Those may have equal reciprocal value, even though they're different things and they are different value in and of themselves, in terms of dollars or what have you, but they have an equal emotional exchange for that person. So it's just some things that we can kind of think about as we're going through all this. And often if there is a big gap in between the value of the items that are exchanged, we can kind of end up in a situation where somebody feels a little jibbed or neglected. And so we often want to think about, if somebody gave you a $20 gift, you might also give them a $20 gift, for example. Now, within the work that we do, we often do find there's already this concept of reciprocity being used in marketing and sales. And you can think about this in just the day-to-day life that you have watching TV, for example. Think of all the infomercials that you've ever seen, the slap chop, for example. You call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you not one, not two, but 3, right? This is this idea of reciprocity where you are giving them money and they want to give you something back in return in order to get you to convert on a particular behavior. And so when it comes to marketing, we're really working through reciprocal concessions. And we're trying to get someone to make a concession in order to do something that we want them to do. Or I'm sorry, I said that backwards. we are going to make reciprocal concessions in order to get someone to do what we want them to do. So we might take a financial hit in order to get them to convert, right? We might give them a discount. We might give them an extra something else in order to get them to make that conversion. So what this might look like in the real world is an example here. So imagine you went to Kate Spade and you put some things into your cart and you left the website. You've already registered the account, you already have one, so they already have your email address. And about 10 minutes later, you get an email along the lines of this that says, hey, we saw that you have something in your cart. If you go ahead and buy that now, we'll give you an extra 15% off. And so it really helps loop people back in by making that concession, by giving them that discount to help convert them to the preferred action, which is to actually check out, right? This is going to be very similar to the that's not all technique, right? That we see in infomercials where people are making those concessions to sweeten the deal, to sweeten the offer so that people will make that conversion. In social psychology, there's also what we refer to as the door in the face technique. And this is actually a technical term. I'm not making that up. But the door in the face technique is, a kind of another marketing technique where you come in with a really big ask and you say, you might knock on somebody's door and say, hey, can I put this 10-foot sign on your front yard? And they're going to literally slam the door in your face and be like, I don't know who this crazy person is, but call the police. But if you talk to them again, you say, okay, not a 10-foot sign. What about a 2-foot sign? They're like, okay, yeah, sure. They make that concession and comply because the favor seems much more reasonable at that point. It's much more moderate. So when we look at how all of this applies to the work that we do on the web, it's a little bit more nuanced. And again, going back to this idea that the value and the actual item that is being reciprocated is not always monetary. It's not always a matter of paying for something or buying something, right? We're not all doing e-commerce. In this day and age, one of the greatest commodities that people have is their information. And so information exchange falls into this categorization of reciprocity because it is the value that I, as a consumer, can provide to you, the company, for whatever it is that you're going to give me back. So I want to show you some examples of, just a couple quick examples of how this can fail really easily. And I think you'll find that you can apply this to a number of places. So this is a growth marketing website. And you can see here, this is actually their homepage. They're not really telling us anything. They're not really providing us any information. And unfortunately, within about 5 seconds of going to the site, they start asking you to do something else. You still don't know what the company does. You still don't understand what value they provide, but now they want you to go and watch this video. You can imagine plenty of websites do the same kind of quick pop-up after a few seconds, asking you to sign up for the newsletter. And you can imagine you've just gotten on the site, you have no idea what it's about, no idea what value they can provide, and now they want you to do something else. They have not provided any value to you in exchange for what they are asking of you. They're asking for more of your time or more of your information, but they haven't provided anything to incentivize that. Similarly, this happens with basically every app out there, unfortunately, is these notification pop-ups, these permission settings. And you'll download an app and typically within a minute, maybe 2, you'll get this permissions pop-up that asks you to enable permissions. And oftentimes, particularly if it's an app that you are new to, you may not know what the benefit is of those notifications. And so your instinct, of course, is going to be say, don't allow, because I don't know what the notification is going to do. I don't know if it's going to be worth my time. I don't want to be bothered. Those are the commodities that I, as a user, can exchange. It's my time and my interaction. And I don't want to waste it on something that's not valuable to me. Now, consider this first example again, in terms of if this product were a person, right? If these two people, because this business is actually owned by these two people, if these two people went to a convention, they had a booth at a convention, Imagine if they interacted with people walking by their booth the way that they interact with people visiting their website. They would run up to people and say, "Hi, my name is GMP. Can I have your email address?" Like, that's a terrible human interaction. Like, I don't know who you are, what you do. I don't know what you're going to do with my information or why you want my email address. I'm honestly a little creeped out, right? By contrast, if you look at the content they have on their About Us page and they had included, and they were to say those words, it would be, "Hi, I'm GMP. In an endless sea of marketing tactics, you have to prioritize what's right for your business. You can't focus on everything. We get amazing results like no one else because we've figured out the formula for prioritization. There's a few tactics for every business that move the needle. We know how to find them, and we'll share them with you. Can we get your email address to send you more information?" Not only is that compelling, but it tells you what they do, what the value is that they can provide to you, and what they're going to do with your information. This is a reciprocal exchange. What we see on the screen is not. So reciprocity is more than obvious value, right? It can be information. Information is the commodity for most companies, right, that are not e-commerce. So I'm going to show you a handful of examples of when this can be successful and just ways that you can think about implementing reciprocity into the work that we do as designers. So the first one, I'll admit to tooting our own horn here, because this is the 352 website, but, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but I want to simply point out that for a company who is all about this is a marketing website. The entire point of the website is to convert people to pay for our time. And yet at the top of the page, the only thing you see along those lines is that contact link. You don't see a get a proposal button. You don't see a call us now button or anything like that, right? It's learn about us. Learn what we do. I want you to understand who we are so that you know if we are the right fit. I want to give you information so that you feel comfortable calling me and going through this long process with me as a company, not me personally. But anytime that we have these kind of complicated products, this is a really important move because I saw this on a product that I worked on a number of years ago where it was a really complicated idea. It was brand new in the innovation space, but it was around estate planning. And, you know, it required a lot of trust on the user. They had to upload all of their assets, pictures of their assets, pictures of their homes. You know, they really needed to trust this thing from a security standpoint and understand the value of it. And so we really wanted people before they signed up to understand what the product did. And so we really focused in on that hero section was not about a sign up now. We still have the sign up at the top of the page, but that was not the main call to action. The main call to action was, let me explain what this is, what this does, and what the value is to you. So this method is particularly helpful when you have a product that is new to the space, something that may be complicated, that people are not going, it's not going to be Facebook, right? Where somebody already knows, if you don't, by some miracle, don't already have a Facebook account, you at least know what Facebook does. Facebook is the only company that can get away with a homepage like this. And this is literally their homepage when they're logged out. But even so, they still show what the value is, right? Connect with friends and the world around you on Facebook. And then they have their login form and their sign up form. But they already have the benefit of, you know, billions of users interacting with their product and their namesake already, you know, being well established. So allowing people to get introduced to your company, to your product, understand the value before we push them forward with contact us. Remember, think about your product as if it were a person. How is it interacting with its users? Another example, and think what you like of the Times, but I think this example is really interesting, where the New York Times, I don't think they're doing this anymore, but for a while they provided the ability to read up to a certain number of articles before your free trial ran out. And so it was interesting from the perspective of getting the value, right? That level of reciprocity, because as a consumer, I was able to consume their information. I was able to evaluate not only the quality of their information, the interface, and just the overall product itself, but because of the way they counted down the number of articles you've read, you can see here I'm on my last article, I was able to discern, oh, you know what? I'm actually coming here pretty often. Maybe I actually should get a subscription. And because of those little moments of, you know, allowing me to interact with the site, it definitely drives up the interest in having that product. So here, the emphasis on having a free trial as opposed to a freemium model allows the user to truly understand the value of your product in full before they have to commit to providing their money or that kind of thing. It allows them to make sure that the product is right for them. And when the product is right for them, they're more likely to then recommend other people. Similarly, Airbnb has this really great ability to allow users to poke around on their site. You can, without creating an account, you can take a look at different destinations. You can find specific houses. You can do all kinds of searches. And it's not until you actually want to favorite something or book something that you actually need to create an account. Now, again, thinking about that reciprocity, right? Not requiring someone to take an action, provide their value of their information, their name, their email address, their banking information, whatever it may be, not requiring them to provide that value before they receive it. So waiting until the end of a flow to ask for that information can help not only create a better conversion, but create quality conversions, people that actually want to use the product. Because the other problem with having these big calls to action on a hero graphic is you may get people to sign up, but they may not know what the product does. And they may sign up and then not use it, and that throws off your metrics and all these kinds of things, right? So we want to increase our conversions that are quality conversions, not just converting for the sake of converting. So anytime that we can defer the sign up process or that conversion point and allow people to establish themselves within the product and understand the value, the better those conversions are going to be. The more satisfied they'll be with the initial experience as well. So how do we leverage this? As I already kind of mentioned, if you're designing a website, consider not having your hero graphic be about that conversion point, letting them know what the product is about. Let them read more about it before you ask them to sign up. You can still have that button at the top, that we almost always have, just to allow people that are ready to quickly find it, right? They don't have to search through the body content to find it. But not having that be the primary focus can allow your user to really understand your product before they convert. Similarly to the Airbnb example, anytime that we can defer the sign up process, we can increase our quality conversions. Amazon does this where you can shop all you want. You can add things to your cart without even signing in. It's not until you actually try and go through the checkout process that you have to convert. And so you can not only consume the data, you consume all of the products that are on there. You can look at their collections of different things like the kids gift guide. You can get a lot of information. Then you can see the value there before you even start shopping. And then there's simple things that we can do just in our day-to-day lives as designers and tech professionals, where we can try and push for providing more value to our users in those small moments. In the moments like where we're going to have a pop-up notification setting wow, those are all words. That was not the order I meant to say them in, but the notification settings pop-up, before we have that pop up, we have an opportunity as developers to say, okay, I want to have this screen show and tell them what this notification is going to do. And then if they say enable notifications, then it can take them to the operating system based pop-up. These small little design decisions enabling us to provide value throughout the UX experience really will help ensure that we're creating a more valuable experience for our users. Similarly, if you have a newsletter, don't just throw a newsletter with a form up, right? Explain what the newsletter is going to be. What types of information should they expect? How often will they hear from you? These kinds of pieces of information are always useful in just setting expectations, but also helps them have a little bit of value walking into that form. We have a UX principle that there should never be mystery meat buttons, right? Where someone hits a button and they don't know what it does. The same thing should go for all of our UX interactions. We should never be asking people to do something when they don't know what it's going to do. So we shouldn't be asking them to fill out a form that they don't know what the end result is going to be. We shouldn't be asking them to sign up for things in general that they don't know what it's going to be. So remember, your consumers are people, and make sure as you're designing, you're thinking about, as a user, what am I going to get out of this interaction? If I have a long onboarding process, each step of the way, what is the user getting out of this? What's to push them to keep going through this process? Are they getting anything back from the system to encourage them to keep going? Are they looking for certain pieces of information that we can give them sooner in that process to give them that value to encourage them to provide more information to us? If you want your users to trust you with their information and come back to you repeatedly, make sure you plant those reciprocity seeds by honestly being nice to them up front and minimizing those interaction costs for them. And generally just ask as little of your users as possible. And as on the web and elsewhere, always start by giving before you start taking. And people will typically reciprocate if it's right for them, right? If they find value in what you're giving, they will typically reciprocate back. So I leave you with this question to always ask yourself: what are your consumers getting out of the deal? And that's it. It's a short one today. So yeah, happy to chat about any of that. I'm going to actually stop the share. I don't have anything else to share. And feel free to come off mute if anybody has any questions, anything they want to talk about.
Thank you. That was a nice presentation.
Thank you. And you're welcome.
I was going to ask, for user research, how you think this might kind of tie in. We kind of do a mix. Sometimes we do incentives, sometimes we don't. But is there any other like value that you can think of that we would add that would be potentially beneficial to our customers as our consumers?
So you mean like in recruiting, or what? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
So I guess it's maybe a twofold question. So one example that I can think of is we'll run surveys that just pop up like on the website while they're using it. And then at the end, we'll be like, hey, it'd be great if we could contact you to follow up on this. Mostly we don't have a great way of just automatically collecting that information. So we have it as more of an opt-in. And like, we know that it's mutually beneficial because if they give us feedback, then hopefully they're getting a better product, but maybe that's not enough. So I don't know if there's any sort of additional value add that we should specify if they're giving the email. So that would be one example.
Yeah, I think you're going to find that, what is valuable to one group is going to be different from the other, right? Money is pretty valuable to most people. So typically a financial incentive is always valuable, but honestly, if I were in your position, I would ask, if you're doing any kind of user interviews, I would ask them, what would incentivize you to participate in X? And get an idea from your actual target demographic, what's valuable to them so that you can provide that, right? Because if it's, tickets to a UF game versus, $20 at Starbucks, those were very different things. But understanding your target demographic, I think, will help define that for you a little bit better. I will say, like, recruiting from the end of a survey is always tough, right? Conversion rates are usually pretty low from surveys to begin with, and then
Right.
off of that is of course even lower. So it's tough, certainly, but I would, with Infotech, I'm assuming you have a pretty set demographic. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and there's different sort of personas within the construction industry, but for the most part, we sort of know who we're working with. It's not just like random anyone.
Right. It's not general population.
Right.
Right. A particular subset of people. Yeah. So I would definitely just try, anytime that you can get a user interview with them, I would ask the question, prior to today, what would have incentivized you to come in and to talk with us? And, what's your preferred method of talking to people? Because, you might find that part of the problem is that construction workers are introverted. I don't know. I'm totally, pulling that out, but if you may find that you're not getting a lot of conversions on people wanting to talk because they're really introverted and they don't know what they would talk about for an hour. I've had that happen where we were booking 2-hour user interviews, and I had a really shy person come in. She's like, I wasn't sure about signing up because I didn't know what I'd talk about for 2 hours. I'm so glad I came, but I was really hesitant. And so, setting a little bit of context, so that might be something else you can do, is in your question, you can set some context about what's going to happen, right? It's going to be an interview for 20 minutes where we will have set questions for you. You don't have to come, prepared with a presentation or anything, right? Just level setting for the user or for the potential participants, what they should expect and what their compensation would be for that time, so that they know what they're walking into, what they have to give, and what they're getting back.
Those are good tips. Thank you. Yeah, I like that. I really, the one about asking them what they want, because we've dabbled in kind of different types of incentives, like monetary, free month of our service. And it's hard to tell. I mean, but we haven't ever asked, like, is this a good incentive? We've just kind of assumed. So I like that. I think we'll have to start doing that.
One thing I'd also add is that sometimes people just like to help, and having some way to track it. In other words, like surveys and things, they're kind of closed, right? We don't give people feedback on the information they provide. But if you had a way that like certain ideas or certain feedback would be presented in like a blog form or some kind of format that then they could track and see how their feedback is then used within the company to change how things are done, that could really incentivize people to be more interested in providing ideas.
Yeah, I love that one too. That's something that I have been thinking about actually a lot. And because we've been doing a lot of interviews and talking to a lot of people, and software just moves slow. So they don't necessarily see the impact of, the results of the study, because it might be, a year later before anything actually comes of it. But yeah, maybe something that's more periodic. So like, even if it's something that's happening like next year, we could be presenting or giving out communications on something that, research that we learned in the past 6 months or something. So they could at least see that we're showing, progress and making changes based on their feedback. So I like that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry if my dog barking went all over while you were, she's not happy about the doorbell ringing at night. Cool. I think I'm going to go eat. So thank you again very, very much. Cool presentation. Nice to meet all of y'all. Have a good evening.
Have any of you guys ever experienced a website like the bad examples? They're just like, what the? No. Any top of mind?
I was actually thinking about the exact opposite. If you don't mind me changing directions.
That's fine.
So especially when you were showing the 352 website and kind of hinting at how it's not in your face, it's not making the CTA like front and center, buy our product, call us now. You guys have heard of storybook branding, like the whole, have you guys read that book? Anyway, so there's, you know, that school of thought that I think it's more marketing centric, that is all about like CTA is front and center, having that above the fold. But to me, it feels kitschy and often forceful. Like if I remember in college, I hated shopping at Buckle in the mall because as soon as you walk in, they just target you and like, how can I help you? But it was just overkill, you know? And I see that a lot with digital marketing. And I like the idea that we can make that conversation much more classy and conversational and approachable, much more down to earth. So I don't know, I was just thinking as you were presenting that it's kind of a delicate balance to make this conversational and inviting without the overkill, but at the same time, make it clear that this is what we're trying to direct you to a sale. We're trying to direct you to our services, how we can help, how we can partner up. But yeah, it's an art to do that well and not do it poorly.
Absolutely. What was the book that you mentioned?
Is it Story Brand? I'll tell you right now.
That'd be great. Building a Story Brand?
It's Donald Miller.
Okay.
Building a Story Brand. Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
And I liked it. I thought there were quite a bit of takeaways. But he is a marketer, not a designer. I don't know. I think there's probably an interesting, more in-depth conversation to be had there.
Yeah, and I think the marketing and design has to work really closely on this, right? And this whole concept, because I often find that marketing is at odds with what I want to do with UX along these lines. We actually ran into this problem on a product that I was building where in the app, and it was a complicated financial app that had a really long onboarding process, and marketing wanted to put that notification setting pop up at the beginning of the onboarding process. Literally, like as soon as you create an account, they wanted it there. And my argument back was, people don't know what this thing does yet. And of course, their argument was, if they abandon, we have no way of getting them back in. And so, how do we loop them back into the app if they've abandoned during the onboarding process? And of course, there's more conversations around, we need to be providing more value in the onboarding process, et cetera. But when it came down to that notification setting, that was a really difficult conversation to figure out where it should be based on these conflicting values, these conflicting needs. So it's definitely something that, when it comes to really any design, I mean, we need to be working closely with marketing and whoever's writing copy and, ensuring that we're meeting all the various goals of the different verticals. But, getting your copywriters particularly involved with this idea of, let's tell them the story up front, I think is really valuable. And it's something that I don't see enough of, honestly, in the web. In my opinion. Cool. Any other thoughts, questions, examples? I love examples. Okay.
Michelle, as a UX designer, what's been the most exciting project that you've worked on?
Oh gosh.
Or what's been the most memorable thing as a UX designer?
So the financial app that I just mentioned was probably one of the more intensive products that I've ever built. We had a team of about 20 people. We were working with the client's company as well. And so we had, I think, 8 developers, 2 designers, 2 researchers, and then a bunch of like management people. And that was really interesting. We did a lot of research. We did just about every month or so, we did in-person testing all over the country, testing the product and validating the work that we're doing in design as well as development. We did ad hoc testing, in-depth interviews. We did multiple rounds of diary studies. And from the design perspective, I wasn't one of the designers on the project, but from the design perspective, it was a really intensive product because people's finances are so different. And so we had to ensure we were covering all these various scenarios, and many of which we had not really anticipated until we got to testing and were able to see how divergent truly people's finances were. Once they put it into the application, it would break the application because they were in so much debt, or they had so many accounts or something like that, and scenarios that we never thought to make up. So that one has had a really profound effect on the way that I work, the way that I think about my work. It's also just in general, it was a really cool app that legitimately helped people's lives. So, which is one of my favorite types of projects. I've only gotten to work on a handful of those in my life. But it was really rewarding to work on. Looks like somebody has their hand raised. Yeah, can't see. Oh, Mo, is that you? Mo, did you mean to have your hand up? I'm gonna lower your hand. No, everybody's got their hands up. Ronnie, you have a question?
Yes, this is my turn. Okay. You saying about fill up the email and that like, okay, we should give them the information. What are they getting? What the user getting? Most of the time, users don't know what they want, and maybe you have some example of the language you use. Because in my idea, it would be better if we saying something like how this information help them, not what. That is my yes. If you have like some example, like okay, this is supposed to be how we write it. This is the direction we're supposed to be. This kind of thing. Yeah, that would be my question.
Yeah, so so you could write it as just straight informational, right? Sign up for our bi-weekly newsletter with blog posts, on the topic of blah, whatever it may be. I think that's valuable in and of itself, right? It's very factual, just in terms of what they're going to be getting. I think there's value in that just so that they can understand, it's again, going back to that mystery meat button, right? We want to know what it's going to do. Just knowing that up front will help provide enough context. You might get a better conversion. Certainly, if you can convey what the value is going to be, great. But to your point, everybody gets value in different ways. And so I think it might be hard to distill the message down in enough to get the value communicated in an effective way. For something like that. But I think if you can communicate your own value as an organization, that might be what ultimately you need to communicate. If the newsletter is about the company, providing that messaging.
Okay.
Is it Helene?
Yes, it's actually, it's not a question, but it's just a comment. I was thinking maybe it's a good idea when you make the interviews, ask the users what they prefer to see all those kind of information before, after, during the process. I don't know, but I was thinking about that. Maybe ask something like that. One of part of the questions in the during the interview could be something related.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that we can talk to our users and ask, we're always going to be in a better situation, right? Yeah. Thank you. Anything else, guys?
Mo, did you have a question?
Nope. Okay. Thank you all for coming this afternoon or this evening. Mo, I'm going to mute you. It looks like you just muted. Okay. Just getting a little bit of feedback. So thank you guys all for coming this evening. Our next meetup is going to be April 6th, and we're going to be talking to Elise Woolley, who is the Director of UX and Front-End Web Development at Bed Bath & Beyond. I'm sorry, wrong Bed Bath place. Bath and Body Works. Apologies. So she's the Director of UX and Front-End Development at Bath and Body Works. Again, April 6th. And then just so you all are aware, Start GNV also has an event coming up for women in tech on Tuesday, March 30th from 6 to 7. And that is a women's speed networking, which is all online. And it's a collaboratory between the UF's Institute Collaboratory for for Inclusive Entrepreneurship and Start GNV. And the idea is to meet Gainesville's best and brightest female leaders who work in tech, entrepreneurship, innovation, and startups. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can follow Start GNV on Twitter or Facebook. I'm sure there'll be posts on there.
What day was that again?
Tuesday, March 30th.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. And I hope you guys have a good one. We'll see you guys next month.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's
guys.
a great presentation.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.